Teaching one-on-one online with Confidence and Connections. In this video, we'll give you an overview of the Confidence and Connections curriculum. We will also take you through the components that make up a lesson and show you how you can best teach each section of the lesson. First of all, I'd like to give you an overview of the curriculum. Confidence and Connections comprises 5 levels plus an intro book. There are 2 books per level in levels 1 through 5. We call those the left and the right book. In order for students to complete a level, they must complete both books, left and right, but they can begin with either book. In addition, there are teacher books for each book. There's an Intercambio app. You can download this for free from your app store, and this is where you will find the listening tracks for the book. In addition, we give ongoing training opportunities, and you can find out about those by looking at the intercambio.org website. Teaching adults is different. Adults need to really want to learn English in order to be successful because they often face multiple challenges. We know that our students frequently juggle multiple jobs at the same time they manage their home and family. Many of our students have a lack of self-confidence. They have low self-esteem, and some are even depressed. In addition, many of them have minimal resources. They don't have a good financial situation. Some of them may be new to their community, and so they have few contacts in the community. And finally, education can play a part. Oftentimes, our students have limited or interrupted education. Teaching online is also different than teaching in person. Here's a few tips to help you be successful. Join your class a few minutes early. That way, when your student joins the meeting, you'll already be there. Make sure, especially in the first classes as you navigate the technology, that you and your student can see and hear each other. As much as possible, make sure both you and your student are in a quiet space. Be sure to keep it simple. And make sure you allow time for your student to ask questions. Being online makes it a little bit harder for you to see each other, and so you may not pick up on everything that's going on. So make sure you allow time for questions. Treat your class professionally. Dress appropriately, for example, not pajamas, and don't eat during your class. Even though your class may only be an hour, make sure you incorporate a break into your class, even if it's just for a couple of minutes to get up and stretch. Speaking of physical movement, use every opportunity you can to incorporate it. For example, if you're presenting vocabulary, maybe it's something the student can find in their house and they can show you. If you're teaching body parts, it's a great opportunity to play Simon Says. When you're teaching verbs, act them out, maybe even play charades. If you want to do a field trip, you guys could cook together online. And if you're both using phones, you could each take a walk around your house or neighborhood and narrate it for each other. In the 16 lessons of each Confidence and Connections book, we strive to accomplish 3 main things. Number 1 is spark confidence. Our students often tell us that they're ashamed to speak English because they're not well understood. By including a pronunciation activity in every lesson, we help students improve their spoken English and therefore they feel more confident. A second goal is to inspire cross-cultural learning. There are multiple opportunities in every book for teachers to learn from students as well as students learning from teachers. In our books, we have 6-page lessons. Every book has 2 reviews and 2 progress checks or quizzes. There are also quick references at the back of the book for additional grammar information, and the ColorVal chart is on the inside back cover. The ColorVal chart is a great tool to use for pronunciation. The third and most important goal of our books is to foster meaningful connections. We like to say that all roads lead to the conversation because throughout the lesson, you're building up the necessary skills in order to have a conversation between students and teachers. And we hope this conversation will be meaningful, personal, and lead to relationships. How it works. Our lessons are based on a 3-part framework called Present, Practice, and Apply. In the Present section, you'll be introducing the new things students need. This will be the grammar and the vocabulary. In the Practice section of the lesson, students will have an opportunity to work with the vocabulary and with the grammar. Typically, these activities may begin as very closed activities where only one answer is correct. As you work through the activities, the later ones will have more open answers. Finally comes the Apply section, and this is the real meat of the lesson. This is the last 3 pages, when students are using the vocabulary and the grammar and putting them together to have a real, meaningful, personal conversation. Now we're going to take a look at the books. So levels 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all the same. Level 1 is slightly different. The first page of every book begins with an introduction to the lesson. So you'll see the title of the lesson. You'll see a big picture, which helps provide context for the lesson. And you'll also see a pre-listening task, which asks a very general question. In level 1, we go on after that to a second listening, whereas in level 2, 3, 4, and 5, we continue with vocabulary and pronunciation. In level 1, we continue with vocabulary on the second page of the lesson and pronunciation, whereas the other levels move on to vocabulary practice, the second listening activity, and we present the grammar. On the third page, where level 1 is learning the grammar and has usually 2 grammar drills, we have a whole page just for grammar drills in the higher levels. The first three pages really form a basis for the lesson. The first 3 pages are where you learn the grammar and the vocabulary you need for it, and the last 3 pages are where you actually incorporate those into more open activities. The books are the same on the next 3 pages. Pages 4 and 5 are the Real Life, Your Life section, and this is where the apply part of the lesson comes in. Here students are going to be reading something, they'll be talking, they'll be making it personal. When you're going to prepare to class, you have a great tool in your teacher book. Every teacher book starts out with a lead page. On this lead page, you can see the title of the lesson. We have what the student will be able to do by the end of the lesson. We have some notes on what you should bring to class, and additional helpful notes for that particular lesson, something that may be hard to explain or some extra tip you might need. We have a warm-up activity for you to start your class with, and on this first preliminary page, we also have the listening script for every lesson. So when you're teaching your class, if you're unable to play the listening track for any reason, you can turn to your teacher's book and you can read the listening. So how do you start class? Well, first you want to make sure the technology is working. You want to share your agenda. So if you're online, you might have a slide with the agenda, or you might write it on a piece of paper and share your screen or hold it up to the screen. You also always want to begin with a warm-up, and you don't need to think of anything special. Your book will provide one. After you do the warm-up in your class, you're going to check the previous day's homework. This is important because if you don't check the homework, students will end up not doing it. There's also an answer key provided to every page of the lesson, and that makes it easy to check your homework, or in fact, you could send your student the answer key and have them check it on their own. In addition, from levels 2 on up, there's a journal prompt every night for homework, and space in the book to write the journal entry. We suggest that as a teacher, you make sure to go over the journal entry in some way. Some teachers have their students send them a WhatsApp message. Some teachers have the students send it in an email, and some teachers just like to have their students read it and then they can comment on it. Once you're done with the homework and the warm-up, then it's time to begin the new lesson. The first thing you want to do is to introduce the topic, and you can do this by taking a look at the title and then look at the picture on the page. Ask some questions about the picture to kind of set the scene. This helps the students activate their background knowledge and also helps them understand what's going to take place because they have some context. The next activity would be the listening, And you can see here that it's just a general question. In this case, what is the customer looking for? So we're not asking students to listen for everything. We just want a general question here. Every lesson provides two opportunities to listen to the same dialogue. The first one, as we just explained, is on the opening page of the lesson. The second one is a little bit farther down in the lesson. This one, the second one, can change, so be sure that you read the instructions with your students and do the example together. So to sum it up, to lead the listening, you want to do several things. First of all, set the scene before you begin playing the listening track. To do this, you might use the picture on the page of the book, or you may use some objects around your house. When you're doing the pre-listening warm-up, make sure you point out the question. Have the student listen for the answer to that question and don't ask additional questions. In the second listening, read the directions completely because there may be different kinds of activities in this one. After you read the instructions, go through an example with your student, play the track, and then play the whole track and then check. Play it again if necessary and check once more. After you've played the complete track several times, if your student's still having difficulty, you may want to break it down. Finally, make sure to check the answers. Every lesson in Confidence and Connections has a set of vocabulary for students to learn. In order for students to learn these new words, they need to repeat them multiple times. The first time you read aloud the word and provide meaning for it. You might want to show them a picture, show them an object, or even in higher levels, provide a definition. The next time, read the word again and have your students repeat. For some students, it can be helpful if they can associate a gesture with the word. On the third time, begin to work on pronunciation. Don't expect perfection, but begin to mold the pronunciation of the word so that your student can be understood by others. In levels 2 through 5, there's a vocabulary practice activity in every lesson. These activities have one answer. They usually involve writing, but to mix it up, you can do them orally. Grammar is presented in Confidence and Connections using a grammar chart. You can find useful information in the gray call-out boxes in your teacher book. When you're presenting in class, walk your students through the chart. What you want to do is read the questions and the answers multiple times and have your students repeat after you. In higher levels, such as level 4 and 5, and as you can see in this example, there is a simple grammar explanation. In the lower levels, we do not give much explanation. Instead, we have students look at the model and we point out the important things. For example, in this chart, the important things are in bold, both of, either of, etc. After the grammar chart comes the grammar practice. In levels 2 through 5, there's typically 3 practice activities on the page. These will start off with a more closed-ended activity that only has one answer, and as the page progresses, the activities may become more open. Once again, there's an answer key at the bottom of the page. In the first 3 pages of the lesson, students were presented and practiced the foundations of the lesson. Now we're ready to cement the learning by making it real and personal. These activities on this page, the Real Life Your Life page, may not have just one correct answer, as it really depends on the student's opinion. You can adapt some of the activities to meet your student's needs. Let's say there's a lesson on getting a job, and your student is not looking for a job. Well, have them talk about someone else in their family, their grandchild, a relative. For sure they know someone who's looking for a job. The Real Life Your Life section usually begins with a reading activity. Allow time for your student to read silently before they answer the questions on this page. Culture Tip is a great place for your student to showcase their knowledge. The discussion prompts encourage our adult students to share what they know while using the English language they're learning. Remember, share your experience and ask your student to share their experience. The last page of the real life section provides scaffolding or support for the student to really have that open conversation. So in the first part, they might read something about somebody, then they might fill out a chart or do some activity about themselves. This gives them a chance to personalize the information. It's also almost like a note-taking portion where they can record their ideas so that when we get to the last activity on the page, the connected conversation, they're able to have the conversation because they don't have to think about what they might want to say. They have some notes. They've already thought about it. We end each lesson with homework. If you want your students to do the homework, it's a good idea to allow 5 minutes at the end of class to go over homework. Start out by reading the instructions and then do the example for each activity. Don't forget about the journal prompt. If the journal entry doesn't look very interesting for your particular student, you can change it. What's really important is that they have the opportunity to write. It may be helpful with your students to establish some kind of expectation. Ask them, when do you think you might be able to do the homework? Where do you think you might do it? By creating these expectations, students may be more likely to do the homework. As we come to the end of this video, let's go over some of the most important points. Engaged students are happy students. Make sure to provide a variety of activities and, when possible, have your students get up and move around. Repetition is key. Make sure you repeat all the new words and all the grammar structures multiple times. Tap into all 4 language skills. Make sure that in every lesson you're doing something with reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Before class, be sure to prepare for what's challenging. Don't forget to take a look at the lead page in your teacher book. Finally, make corrections. Students always ask us to make corrections, and they do need them. But when you're making corrections, make sure you keep it positive and make your corrections relevant to the lesson. Don't try and correct every single mistake. If you can remember these things, we're sure you'll be successful in your teaching. Thank you for volunteering with Intercambio. For more information on how to use Zoom, check out the tutorials at zoom.us/resources. For more information about Intercambio and to see our other how-to videos, check out our website, intercambio.org. Thank you.